I stood under a slate-gray sky while my son's casket was lowered into the cold Missouri soil. 8 years old. Just 8. And now Tyler James Abbott was being buried with his favorite plush fox clutched in his small, still hands. The same hands that used to tug at my beard when I read him bedtime stories. That box they put him in looked too clean, too polished. Like death was something you could wrap in ribbon and pretend was peaceful. He should have been wearing his Captain Astro pajamas, not a stiff charcoal suit. He should have been curled up in bed after a bad dream, not zipped in a satin-lined death like an afterthought. It was the empty space beside me at the front pew. That space wasn't supposed to be empty. That space was for my wife. Janine wasn't there. She didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't even send flowers. I was holding our son's death in my chest like a stone, and she was just gone. The service began. Pastor Elliot tried to say something about God needing the brightest stars in heaven. It was all white noise. The crowd sniffled. Kids fidgeted in their seats. Old ladies held each other's hands like grief was contagious. But all I could do was stare ahead. And then my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. The old iPhone 6 with the cracked screen. Tyler had dropped it trying to chase the cat one day. I pulled it out, thinking maybe the funeral director needed something. Maybe someone else had shown up late. It was a text from an unknown number. No words at first, just a picture. In the photo, Janine sat by a pool. Red bikini, tan legs, a cocktail with a lime wedge and pink umbrella in her hand. Her sunglasses rested on top of her head, and that smug smile, the one I used to love, was stretched across her face. Next to her sat a man. Younger, shirtless, clean-shaven, tanned. His hand wasn't just around her. It was halfway under her bikini strap. And she wasn't pulling away. She leaned into him like she'd never leaned into me. Not once in the last year. Under the photo were 8 words. Thought you should know where your wife is. Time stopped. I stared at the screen so long it went dark, then tapped it back awake again like maybe I hadn't seen it right the first time. But it was real. It was stamped this morning. 10:04 a.m. The same minute they closed Tyler's casket. Connor, my mother's voice. You're shaking. I was. Hands trembling like a leaf in a thunderstorm. I shoved the phone in my pocket and nodded to her. I don't think I spoke for the next 10 minutes. I just stood there while they talked about Tyler's courage, how he laughed even on chemo days, how he gave away his stickers to the other kids on the cancer floor. They said he had an old soul. Maybe he did. I used to think I had a strong one, until I watched my wife abandon us without so much as a backward glance. They asked me to speak. I walked to the podium on legs that felt hollow and splintered. I opened my mouth and talked about dinosaurs, and how Tyler once asked if pancakes could be shaped like a brontosaurus. I told them about the time he painted all the white roses blue because white is boring, Dad. I laughed, but I didn't say her name. I didn't say Tyler's mom, because Tyler's mom wasn't there. She was 1,200 miles away in a beachfront resort, sipping margaritas and letting some kid play with her bikini strings. After the burial, we went to the reception at my parents' house. People came, brought casseroles, stood around awkwardly holding styrofoam plates, whispering like we were in a museum. No one mentioned Janine. Not directly, but the absence clung to the walls like cigarette smoke. Her parents were there, Roger and Luann Mitchell, always polished, always pretending they were royalty trapped in the Midwest. Roger gave me a stiff nod. Luann hugged me like I had something contagious. I'm sure Janine wanted to be here, she whispered, patting my arm like I was a child. I turned my head and looked her dead in the eyes. You mean she didn't mention her plane ticket to you? Or the poolside cocktails? Luann's smile cracked. She blinked fast. I don't know what you're talking about. I do, I said. I've got the receipts. Literally. I walked away before either of them could recover. I found myself standing in Tyler's room. Still untouched. The last place he slept. Still smelled like baby shampoo and dry Cheerios. His backup stuffed fox, Mr. Redtail No. 2, was perched on the bookshelf. I sat on his bed and held it until the sun dipped behind the hills. That's when I noticed the manila envelope on the kitchen table. No return address. Just my name in neat, careful handwriting. Inside was a printed receipt. Palms Resort, St. Augustine, Florida. Room 304. 7 nights. Check-in date. 5 days before Tyler died. Paid in full with our joint credit card. She left before he passed. She packed a suitcase, lied to my face, kissed Tyler's forehead, and flew off to paradise while I held our son's hand through his last seizure. Later that night, I dug through her locked vanity drawer. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe a note. Maybe some shred of explanation. What I found was worse. A second phone. A burner. Still charged. A stack of receipts, alcohol, boutique shops, and a $900 dinner with no name. A notebook. Inside were little notes scribbled in shorthand. Symbols. Times. Hotel rooms. Cash withdrawals. This wasn't an affair. It was a double life. She didn't just cheat. She erased us. She cut us off like we were a phase, like motherhood was a bad tattoo she regretted. And then I found the life insurance document. Tyler's name on it. Janine as the sole beneficiary. Signed 6 months ago. Altered 4 weeks ago. My name was scratched off in legalese. $1 million payout. Tyler hadn't even been buried, and she was already spending the money. I sat in the garage, holding that old lunchbox Tyler decorated with stickers. The same one I took to the factory every day. My fingers brushed the dent in the lid, the one he made when he dropped it in the driveway trying to surprise me. The burner phone buzzed again at 3:11 a.m. I hadn't slept. Couldn't. Not with Janine's second phone sitting there on the counter like a live grenade. I'd left it powered on, the screen dimmed beside my coffee mug from yesterday, and the folder with all her receipts spread out like a crime scene. Tyler's drawing of our house, the one with the crooked sun and the stick figures holding hands, sat just to the left of it, reminding me what this was really about. Another buzz. Then a name. Ivy. I didn't know an Ivy, but she knew something. You don't text a man on a dead child's burner phone unless you're either insane or holding on to a secret that could change everything. The message read, "Meet at Lawson Park. For PM picnic bench by the lake. Come alone." I stared at it until the screen faded black, then turned the phone off and slipped it into my jacket pocket. If this was bait, I'd bite. But I wouldn't go in blind. The rest of the morning passed in a daze. I called into work and told my supervisor I needed another week. He didn't argue. Nobody wants to push a man who just buried his son and discovered his wife was poolside with another man hours later. By 2 p.m., I was in the garage. My old Ford Ranger sat like it always had, half rust, half miracle. Tyler used to sit on a stool beside me while I worked on the engine, handing me tools from a beat-up red toolbox that had belonged to my dad. I ran my hand over the box's dented lid. Then I opened the glove box and checked the .38 revolver I hadn't touched in years. It was legal, licensed, loaded. I didn't plan to use it, but trust had become a luxury I couldn't afford. Lawson Park, nestled outside of town near Hollow Creek, was quiet this time of year. Most people didn't come until summer, when the paddle boats reopened and the lake stopped smelling like swamp water and dead fish. But the picnic benches by the shoreline were still there, and at exactly 4:02 p.m., so was I. That's when I saw her. Slim frame, late 20s maybe, dark auburn hair tied back in a ponytail. She wore a faded army green jacket, the kind that belonged in surplus bins, and sat stiffly at the farthest bench, staring out at the water like it had wronged her. I walked over, slow and cautious. "You Ivy." She nodded once, then gestured at the spot across from her. I stayed standing. "You know who I am?" "Connor Abbott. Warehouse supervisor. Father to Tyler. Husband to Janine. Though that last one might not hold up much longer." I narrowed my eyes. "You friends with her?" "No," she said flatly. "But I know someone who is." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a manila envelope, just like the one I'd received in my mailbox the day after the funeral. "This is going to hurt," she said, sliding it across the table. I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages, bank statements, photos, dozens of them. The name at the top of several wire transfers hit me like a 2x4 to the skull. Wesley Crane. I hadn't heard that name in 15 years. My college roommate. A real estate weasel who'd been run out of 3 towns for fraudulent land deals. Last I'd heard, he tried to open a crypto firm and disappeared after the IRS started sniffing around. "You're saying Janine is working with him?" "She's not just working with him," Ivy said. "They're partners. Lovers. Co-conspirators. They've been siphoning money through fake shell companies, some in Belize, some in Nevada, all under dummy LLCs linked to Janine's maiden name." I flipped through the papers. One showed a condo lease signed by both Janine and Wesley. The address? San Pedro, Belize. Paid in advance for the next year. "You're lying," I said. "She's not that smart." "She didn't need to be," Ivy replied. "Wesley handled the logistics. She provided the funds, yours, mostly, Tyler's life insurance, and the account your paychecks have been quietly funneling into without your knowledge." "What?" She handed me a bank slip. It was from an offshore account registered under J. M. Abers, a name close enough to Janine Mitchell Abbott to mean one thing. She'd been stealing from me, systematically, for over a year. I stepped back from the table and ran both hands down my face. "Ivy, I said slowly. Why the hell are you telling me this? She hesitated. Then she pulled out a photograph. Old. Faded. It was a woman, laughing with her arms wrapped around a tall man. A much younger Wesley Crane. That's my sister, she said. Her name was Dana. She died 3 years ago. I looked closer. The photo was marked on the back. Dana plus Wes. Lake Tahoe. 2019. He used her, Ivy said. Took everything. Maxed her credit. Dumped her. Vanished. She overdosed a year later. I've been chasing him ever since. And Janine. She's the same brand of predator. I thought you deserved to know. I thought I'd hit bottom. I whispered. Losing Tyler. Finding out about the affair. But this is deeper. This is hell. Ivy's voice dropped. Connor, there's more. She slid one final page toward me. A photo, timestamped from the night Tyler died. Hospital security footage. It showed Janine walking down the hallway. In her hand was a vial. Wesley told one of his former partners, someone I tracked down in Fort Lauderdale, that Janine promised the insurance payout would be fast. She said the boy wouldn't make it another week anyway. You're saying she? I don't have proof, Ivy said. Just the timeline. The vial. And this. She pulled out a voice recorder. Pressed play. Janine's voice. Scratchy. Whispering. He's not getting better. And I can't wait around for this. I need the money now. I'll take care of it. Just make sure the papers are filed. I stood up so fast the bench squeaked under me. My fists clenched. I wanted to throw the recorder into the lake. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stared at Ivy. What do you want from me? I want justice. You want truth. We can help each other. She reached out. Her hand brushed mine. Let's take them both down. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I sat at the kitchen table flipping through Ivy's folder like it was a new Bible, my gospel of betrayal. Janine wasn't just gone. She had rewritten herself, deleted Tyler from her life, erased me, and now she was planning a beachside happily ever after with the same con artist who ruined Ivy's sister. But that voice on the recorder. She had made a choice, not just to leave, but to end it. For money. I looked at Tyler's drawing again. The stick figure version of Janine had long blonde hair and a smile. I flipped it over. On the back, he'd scribbled in red crayon. My mom loves me. She told me I'm the best boy. I felt something inside my chest crack. The next morning, Ivy and I met in the back room of Mulligan's bar, the one nobody uses unless there's a football game. She brought a laptop, external hard drives, and a list of contacts. I brought a plan. We would start by tracing the money trail. Janine and Wesley had gotten sloppy, maybe too confident. The bank transfers weren't as hidden as they thought. Ivy already had access to one of Wesley's offshore shell accounts. Next came surveillance. Janine hadn't returned to town yet, but we found her new alias, Julia Manning. Under that name, she'd booked a flight to Cancun in 2 days. Using a contact Ivy had through her old job in data recovery, we got access to airport security feeds. Sure enough, there she was, breezing through pre-check in high heels and a fake Louis Vuitton bag. Laughing. I was in Tyler's room, sorting through some of his old drawings, when I heard the sound of the front door. It creaked open. Footsteps on the hardwood. I grabbed the revolver and crept to the hallway. And there she was. Janine. Her hair was tied up. Her skin tanned. She wore sunglasses even indoors. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked annoyed. You changed the locks, she said, voice flat. You killed our son, I said. She didn't flinch. I need the safe key, she said, stepping toward the hallway closet. I left something in there. You left your soul in Belize too? That made her pause. She turned toward me, arms crossed, mouth curling. You've been digging. I nodded. Deep enough to find Ivy. Deep enough to find Wes. Her eyes flashed, but she didn't back down. What do you want, Connor? Revenge. No, I said. I want your signature. On the confession Ivy wrote. Or I send everything to the police. The insurance fraud, the fake identities, the voice recording. I'll bury you. Her laugh was dry. Empty. You don't have it in you. I pulled out my phone and played the clip again. Her voice. Her words. The death sentence she whispered. Her face changed. You bastard, she hissed. You think you're righteous? You're the one who gave up. You missed the signs. You didn't push hard enough. You let him die. I didn't blink. You stole my son's last breath, Janine. She lunged at me then, not with fists, but with fingernails, clawing at the phone, at my jacket, screaming, shrieking, like something unhinged. I shoved her back, just enough to make her stumble. Then Ivy stepped from the hallway, phone in hand. Still recording. Got everything, she said. Janine froze. And that's when I knew we had her. You're going to wish you never met her, she said, nodding toward Ivy. She's a black hole. She'll drag you down farther than I ever could. Then she walked herself to the door and left. Just like that. I thought that would be the moment I finally felt peace. But peace doesn't come like a switch being flipped. Especially not after you've been living in fog for as long as I had. There was too much rot under the floorboards. And now, with Janine's schemes exposed, it was time to rip it all up. We filed the footage and Ivy's recordings with Detective Sarah Grimes the following morning. She'd been working fraud cases in St. Charles County for over a decade. When I played Janine's whisper on that voice recorder, "I need the money now. I'll take care of it," her eyes narrowed to slits. "That's enough for conspiracy," she said. "And if you're right about the money trail, it's felony fraud, money laundering, maybe even attempted homicide if we can prove intent." Sarah ordered a warrant. A team swept Janine's condo in Jacksonville that same night. They found bank documents, a passport under a different name, and an envelope of cash, $40,000 in crisp hundreds. But Janine? Gone. We had footage of her boarding a small private plane out of Clearwater. Destination, Honduras. The news broke 3 days later. Suburban mother accused of defrauding son's death for $1 million payout. Manhunt underway. They used Tyler's school photo. The one with the missing front teeth and the blue flannel shirt I loved. The picture that sat beside his hospital bed during his final nights. Suddenly, everyone in town had an opinion. Some said I should have seen it coming. Others whispered that I probably helped her. There were rumors that I was in on it all, that I staged the funeral as part of a scam. The worst part? I couldn't visit Tyler's grave without reporters trying to ambush me in the cemetery. So I stopped going. Instead, I took long drives at night, out past Miller's Creek, up into the old logging roads where there was no reception, no signs, no eyes. Just trees and gravel and memory. It was during one of those nights that Ivy told me about the letter. We were sitting in the booth at Mulligan's again. She was scribbling in her journal, a ritual she did every time something clicked in her head. She mailed it, Ivy said, 2 days before the funeral. It's postmarked from St. Augustine. Sent to someone named Mallory. It was intercepted with the rest of her condo mail. She handed me the envelope. The handwriting was Janine's. Same curly loops, same dramatic slashes on her T's. Inside was a single page. "Mallory, you were right. He never saw it coming. By the time he's done crying, I'll be halfway to paradise. Keep the burner until the insurance clears. If he asks, say I'm still in mourning. After that, poof, I'm gone. Just like we planned." It was signed with a heart. Not her name. Just a heart. And then a postscript. Until West the vitamin worked faster than I expected. I read the line 5 times before I could speak. "She killed him," I whispered. Ivy was quiet. She let the silence fill the booth, let it press down on us like a confession. "She didn't just abandon him," I said. "She ended him." Detective Grimes brought in toxicologists. Ordered a re-examination of Tyler's medical records. They ran tests on what was left of his 4-bag. And 3 weeks later, she called me in. "I'm going to tell you something you won't want to hear," she said. "But you need to know." I sat down. There were elevated levels of midazolam in his system. "That's a sedative," I said. "They used that for his seizures." Dr. Henley said. "They did, but not in that amount. Someone administered an unprescribed dose, roughly triple what was charted." I couldn't breathe. "They think he might have just drifted off?" She nodded. "It wasn't violent. It wasn't painful. But it wasn't natural." I left the station and drove until the gas tank was nearly empty. Parked on the bluff by the old grain mill and sat on the hood of my truck. Tyler's bracelet, the one he made for me in art therapy, with blue and green beads spelling Dad, was wrapped around my wrist. I held it until my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. Not anymore. I felt like the grief had dried up. What was left was something harder. Something darker. Resolve. Weeks passed. I stayed in town. Ivy didn't. She flew to Miami, then Panama. She had connections, old friends in journalism, black hat hackers from her days tracking Wes. She called every few days with updates. "She's in Roten," Ivy said one night. "Fake passport. Bought a villa through a third-party shell. Alone." "No. Wes is there too. And someone else." "Who?" She hesitated. "A kid." My stomach dropped. "Whose kid?" "We don't know. Could be Wes's. Could be hers. But he looks around 6. I stopped breathing. "You think it's—" "No," Ivy said quickly. "Connor, she never mentioned another pregnancy. The math doesn't add up. But I couldn't let it go. What if she had? What if she'd gotten pregnant just before leaving me? What if she had another son and left me to bury the first without ever telling me?" I flew down 2 weeks later. Took a connection through Guatemala City, then a puddle jumper into Roten. Ivy met me at the tiny airport with a rental car and 2 strong coffees. You sure about this? She asked as we drove. No, I said, but I can't sleep not knowing. We parked 3 streets away from the villa. Ivy had a drone, a compact thing she launched from the car hood. It buzzed overhead and hovered near the second-floor balcony. What we saw made my blood run cold. There she was, Janine, barefoot, tanned, laughing. She looked like a woman on vacation, not a fugitive, not a murderer. And next to her, a little boy, brown hair, pale skin, around 6 years old. He was holding her hand. I stepped back from the monitor and nearly dropped it. He has Tyler's eyes, I said. But I knew that couldn't be right. Tyler was gone. Gone. We didn't confront her. Not that day. Instead, we sent the footage to Interpol and the U.S. Marshals. Ivy called in every favor she had left. It took a week, but on a rainy Thursday morning, they raided the villa. They took Janine into custody. Wesley tried to run. Didn't get far. The boy? He was turned over to local authorities. But Janine refused to name the father. No birth certificate. No record. Just another secret. Another loose end. I flew home alone. The town had moved on. The reporters were gone. The church had replaced Tyler's memorial flowers. The whispers had died. But my house still smelled like cinnamon waffles, his favorite. Ivy and I talked less. She was tired. Worn down. She said she might go back to school, try to start over. I told her I understood. 1 month after Janine's arrest, I got a letter in the mail. It was addressed to me. No return address. Just a short message. The boy is yours. She lied to everyone. She kept him from you so you'd never fight her for custody. His name is Jacob. I never got to tell you. But he was born on a Tuesday. Like Tyler. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Janine. When I finished reading that letter short and signed, written in Janine's unmistakable cursive, I didn't know whether to fall to my knees or burn the damn thing. The boy is yours. His name was Jacob. Born on a Tuesday. Just like Tyler. I ran my fingers over the line a dozen times, as if the pressure of my touch could somehow extract more truth from it. But the truth was already there, as ugly and bright as a busted floodlight. She'd kept a second son from me, and now he was sitting in a Honduran foster care system, a ghost with my DNA, while his mother rotted in a jail cell and I sat in a house that used to hold bedtime stories and pancakes. I was holding a second chance, and I didn't know what to do with it. I tried Ivy first. Called, texted, left voice messages. Silence. It was like she'd vanished. The one person who had walked this whole road with me, who helped tear Janine's mask off, who heard the whispers in the shadows, was suddenly off-grid. No explanation. I should have been used to people disappearing by now. So I turned inward, the way men like me do. I started a folder, one of Tyler's old school binders, the blue one with the Velcro strap. Inside it, I began collecting documents, birth certificate extracts, translated court memos, Interpol files. Anything with Jacob's name. Jacob Abbott. I wrote it on the inside flap in black marker. Big. Centered. Like a flag planted in new soil. Then I called the embassy. Then I called them again. And again. They kept saying the same thing. Without proof, without legal recognition, without a judge's ruling, you're not considered next of kin. I was just some man in Missouri with a dead child and a story that sounded like a tabloid headline. That's when I found Andrea Kovac. If Ivy was fire, Andrea was ice. Mid-40s, Serbian accent that turned razor-sharp when she talked numbers and law. She met me in a diner 2 hours from my house, sat down with a laptop, a stack of printed forms, and eyes that looked like they'd seen far worse than my mess. Your case, she said after reading my notes, is complicated, but not hopeless. Her fingers flew across her keyboard. She began outlining everything we'd need. A court-ordered DNA test filed through international channels. Custody claims prepared in both Missouri and Honduras. Affidavits proving I had no prior knowledge of the birth, no legal abandonment. Character witnesses. Clean financial statements. A safe home environment. You're being evaluated like you're applying for a foreign adoption, she said. Because to them, you're not his dad yet. Not until you convince the court. I clenched my jaw. He's my son. Andrea nodded. Then we'll prove it. That night, I walked back into Tyler's room for the first time in weeks. It still smelled like baby shampoo and vanilla lotion. Still had a dried macaroni picture hanging by a pushpin above the dresser. I pulled the comforter off his bed, stripped the shelves, painted the walls. And by the next morning, it wasn't Tyler's room anymore. It was Jacob's. But I left one thing. Tucked in the drawer beside the bed, beneath new pajamas and fresh socks, was a folded piece of construction paper with a stick figure drawing on it. Tyler, Janine, and me. And in Tyler's handwriting. I love my family the most. Because even if Tyler was gone, he deserved to be part of what came next. The DNA test took time. Weeks. They had to arrange a medical officer to visit the foster home in Honduras. Another to process my sample here. Andrea tracked it every day like a storm forming offshore. In the meantime, I kept my head down. Went back to work. Long shifts. Night runs. Stacking pallets. Hauling boxes. But my mind was always somewhere else. Was Jacob safe? Did he know he was loved? Had anyone told him the truth? Then one morning my phone rang. Andrea. She didn't waste time. He's yours, she said. 99.9% match. I sat down on the porch steps. The morning air was sharp with wood smoke and wet leaves. I looked out over the lawn, dead patches where Tyler used to set up his sprinkler and chase butterflies. I whispered a thank you to no one and everyone. Then I called the school. Then the pediatrician. Then the lawyer again. We built the case in layers. Andrea drafted a statement for the judge. We gathered character witnesses, my pastor, my supervisor, my cousin who's a retired police officer. She even had a social worker visit my house to inspect the setup. They looked over Jacob's new room, measured the lighting, checked the fire alarm. They left a note. Father has demonstrated a stable, emotionally invested environment. Recommend expedited placement pending approval. We sent it all. Then we waited. It hit hard. Harder than the funeral. Harder than the affair. It came in a letter from the Department of Justice. A formal notice. I was under investigation for financial fraud. Specifically, a shell charity called the Tyler Abbott Pediatric Hope Foundation. Registered under my name. Filed 6 weeks ago. Linked to a bank account I'd never opened, with wire transfers that totaled over $600,000. The money trail led to Lou and Mitchell, Janine's mother. I drove straight to their house. Didn't knock. Didn't call. Just walked through the front door like a storm in boots. Roger stood up from the recliner. Luann was at the kitchen counter, slicing lemons into her tea like nothing had happened. You started a fake charity, I said. In my dead son's name. Roger raised his hands. Connor, let's talk. No, I said, voice like broken glass. You used my name. My grief. You stole his memory. Luann set the knife down. You weren't doing anything with it, she said. We thought it could go to good causes. Pediatric oncology. Support centers. Bull, I snapped. You were stealing. Her expression hardened. You want to raise Jacob? You? A warehouse worker with a rusted truck and a hole in his roof? You don't know what that child needs. I took a step forward. Roger blocked me. You don't get to decide, I said. He's not your do-over. Luann's voice dropped to a hiss. You're weak. You let Janine walk all over you. Let that boy die under your watch. You want another chance? You don't deserve one. I didn't answer. I walked out. And 2 hours later, Andrea filed criminal charges. Fraud. Forgery. Wire theft. The federal case helped us more than anything else. Made me look like the victim. Gave the custody claim a moral spine. By the time the Honduran judge reviewed the file, he was halfway through a ruling. The court hearing was held on a Monday. Gray skies. Rain falling so light it felt like breath on your neck. I sat in a room with 6 officials. Andrea translated as needed. The judge asked me to speak. I didn't read the speech we'd written. I just spoke. I told them about Tyler. About how he used to call rain cloud crying. About how I'd never stop hearing the rasp of his breath in those final hours. About how I didn't want to replace him, but I couldn't bear the thought of another son growing up thinking he was unwanted. I ended with this. I wasn't given a choice the first time. Don't take this one from me. They brought Jacob in. Skinny. Quiet. Brown hair curling at the ears. His eyes flicked to mine. He didn't smile. But he didn't cry either. The judge called recess. I knelt down. Hi, I said. I'm Connor. I'm your dad. He tilted his head. Studied my face. Then he reached out and put his hand in mine.